Hey, you guys, this is Courtney Camaro. I'm outside of Muhammad Ali's real original home. We're in Chicago, and I wanted to shout out Al's Botanics and Herbs. Man, when I tell you, I am one of those people that has insomnia. I can't sleep. I can't focus on some days because I'm so sleep deprived, and this has helped. This is one of the mixtures he has that helps with sleep.
What's going on today? We're going to do a global elite breakdown. We're going to break down what the global elites are, the different camps, the different groups. We're going to break that down today. Okay. So I'm going to get right into it. Okay. I'm going to get right into it and, basically break down. This also involves basically the wars that are going on right now in the Middle East. This explains it. This is the main reason that I'm actually doing this because I want to break down in real time who the global elites are, and it will beg the question as far as what their plans are and why they're in the Middle East heavy and so on. Okay. All right. So let me get right into it. Let's get right into this here and talk about this here for I don't know how long this is gonna be. It's probably gonna be a long one because of the matter of the subject matter at hand. I would imagine this is probably gonna be long and lengthy, probably an hour, 2 hours. I don't know, might even be longer, depending on how the show goes. As far as if anybody I definitely will if anybody ever asked to drop a link, I've never said no. So sometimes people want to talk, sometimes people just want to listen. It all depends. But first of all, the first global elites that are in question is the Western billionaire class, the Epstein class. Okay. Liberal globalist networks, finance, tech, intel, uh, adjacent. It's raining, guys. So if you hear that, that's pretty much Mother Nature raining down. Okay, nothing I can do about that. All right. So the Western billionaires are as follows the Epstein class. You basically got Donald Trump within that group. Okay, you have even basically everybody that was associated with the Epstein emails and the back and forth dialogue. You got Elon Musk in that mix. You got um, Princess Andrew. And one of the unique things about Prince Andrew and others, this is the thing. And Elon Musk actually said this too. It's like how much money I have, or roundabout, because my income is stated. But the true amount of wealth that other people have, you have no idea. Let me tell you something, right? In basically in the world, you have something called a trust. Okay. And one of the things about a trust is it's secret. And then you have shell companies, you have different ways where the elite basically they do not disclose, they hide their wealth. Okay, you have families that have secret ledgers, secret accounts, secret trusts that you absolutely have. They're not on Forbes. If they are in Forbes, their income that is stated in Forbes, it is not their true income. It's not their true income. You basically have some families, like the royal family, for example. They have their income or their actual wealth is not disclosed. Some say that it's in the trillions, okay, but their income is private income, private sovereign wealth that is not disclosed. Okay, they have other families that are also they do not disclose their wealth. You got to understand, it's kind of like a drug dealer, right? Drug dealers, they don't disclose their wealth. They hide their wealth. Okay, they hide their wealth. You don't know what a drug, like, a drug dealer is rich. Obviously, you see a drug dealer might be, in the club, or you might see chain. He might have chains. Depending on who the drug dealer is, but you just don't know how much they have, because they legally can't disclose how much money they have. Because if they did, they will get arrested. The feds can estimate how much money they have with, certain measures that they take, but you don't know how much a drug dealer makes. They're not really telling you how much money they make. They know how much they make, but you don't know how much they make. In some families, that's how they have their wealth. You don't know how much money they have. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say that there are some notable families and even monarchies that have wealth in the trillions that is not stated. It is not stated income. Their income is unstated, it's private, and you don't know, and you'll never know how much money they have. So the Western billionaires, the Epstein class, okay, they're going against this here. This is who they're going against. The IRGC cartel, okay? And basically, you could call them the Ayatollah cartel, okay? Basically, they're a theocratic government, which Iran, that's what Iran is. It's a theocratic government, but it has Revolutionary Guard elites that control those oil interests, and they control the government's interests. It's very similar to like North Korea, okay? It's very similar to North Korea. You have basically, they're ruled by the government, and the head elites in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and they control primarily the oil interests. So the Western billionaires, the Epstein class, they already knocked off. They already basically, this is who they started off with. They basically, they have wars on different fronts. So this is who they went after, and they're still going after. They're going after the drug cartel. That's why they went after Maduro and company. And if you think for a second that situation that happened with El Mencho, the United States were not involved in that, you're a fool if you believe that the United States had no involvement in capturing El Mencho and basically what happened shortly after that was a brief civil war with the Mexican drug cartels and the Mexican government. Mexican government basically used their air power primarily with their helicopter gunships, and their Mexican Marines and others to quell El Mencho and his cartel and others that were involved with that. They were able to crush them, right, and come to some type of order. But this is who they went after first. They first went after the drug cartel. And the drug cartel, like I mentioned before, they are also a part of the global elites, but they're not, their income is not stated. The drug cartels down in Mexico and South America and the Caribbean are very, very powerful. A lot of their money is basically transmitted in American and Western banks. Basically, American banks, also other banks that are, basically more flexible, like let's just say the Grand Caymans, Swiss bank accounts, those particular places where you can bank with more anonymity than you would other places. They have their money there, and a lot of these guys are billionaires. They have billions and billions of dollars, and they make it fast with drugs, heroin, fentanyl, uh, cocaine, marijuana, cheap, high grade, potent marijuana, coming from south of the border. So this is who they went after first, and they still have ongoing. They still have their tippy toe in that mix of dealing with the drug cartel. After that, they went to the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Basically, the Revolutionary Guard elites. They basically have destroyed them. They have basically eliminated a lot of them. A lot of the higher aboves, the higher ups of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they have already eliminated. They have other people that were next up in line. They have taken their place, but this is all they're doing right here. The Western billionaire Epstein class. This is what they're doing. Now, why are they doing this? Somebody said, I saw something on Facebook. They starting to say now, the Democrats are saying this wouldn't happen if Kamala Harris was in office. Okay, that's what they're saying. They're saying this wouldn't happen if Kamala Harris was in office. I don't know what I try to think about it, right? Like, what would a Kamala Harris presidency look like? In my opinion, I'm not optimistic either way. I'm not optimistic about what that would look like either. in my humble opinion, just to basically surmise what possibly that would look like, I would say a Kamala Harris administration where she was the president might be even more depressing, right? It might be even more depressing socially. It might be a situation to where socially, a lot of people will be probably struggling even more. Okay, it might be. I would say typically it'll probably be a situation where the country would just kick the can down the road as far as they would just basically make sure everyone got their food stamps and their link cards and welfare and everything like that. And everything will be paid up, and the country would just basically, um, it'll probably be just kind of similar to the Biden administration. It will just be just like that, but I think might even be worse. I'm saying on a social level, I think it would be worse in a sense of I think that it would be a situation where it will be more immigrants coming in for sure. That's off top. The ICE would not be active as it is now. So it would just be basically a situation where it would be a continuation of what was going on in the Biden administration. Open borders, replacement of local American homegrown citizens by immigrants, basically putting the poors against the global poors, because that's who was coming into the country. The people that were coming into the United States was poor people from other countries. And the most people that are affected is poor people, because the poor people are the ones that have to work, they have to compete for jobs, and so on and so forth. So the rich and elites, they don't have to worry about immigration because they don't compete with immigrants. Okay, in a sense of in their own country in America, they don't compete with immigrants. Okay, they don't compete with poor people, right? They basically are kind of in a financial bubble. They basically don't have to worry about immigrants. Matter of fact, they love immigrants because they get cheap labor from those immigrants. They get, they can get the best landscapers, the best people to service them, because the elites are all about service. If you can master service and customer service and kind of get, all you need is one elite, and basically get in on the ground floor, and then that one elite will refer you to others if you have very good service, like if you're a chef, if you do home remodeling, home design, if you do sculpting, they like to get served. They like services, right? So that's one thing to think about, as far as if you're thinking about getting involved, trying to get some money from them. They like people to serve them. They like their world. It consists of people serving them, meeting their needs, getting their needs met. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on now as far as these guys going back and forth with, again, the first they went after the drug cartels, Those are also the global elites. They're not necessarily global elites in the sense of they have their money is hidden money or secretive. Okay. They are rich. Okay. Those cartels have billions of dollars in funds that they can use to buy weapons, to buy whatever they need to get. Okay. And and they, basically it's underground money. After that, they went to try to do the same play with Iran. But what happened was they opened up a snake's a snake pit. When they went to the IRGC, when the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they were waiting for them for 40 years, actually 50 years. The Iranians were waiting for the Americans. They already knew the Americans were coming. They knew these guys were coming. They were prepared. They were making 50-year preparations for these guys. They knew that they were coming. They started digging underground because they knew they were coming. They were already prepared for them to attack. They're 50 years too late. And because not everybody is with the IRGC, okay? Not everybody is with them because these guys here, they're not with the IRGC. Okay? That is the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. They're not with the IRGC. They own peaceful terms to a certain extent, right? They're on peaceful terms to a certain extent, but not really, because the Saudis and Yemen were going back and forth. Okay, the Yemenis are part of this here. They're aligned with the IRGC. Okay, Iraq is aligned with them. Certain segments in Iraq, Yemen, and also even Hezbollah in Lebanon are with the IRGC. They're aligned with them. But these guys, not so much, right? Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, they are not aligned with the IRGC. They don't bother each other. They don't, quote unquote, are supposed to be Muslims, right? The Shiite, the Sunni, the Middle East oil cartel are Sunni. IRGC cartel, let me fix this here. They're Shiite. Well, I'll just say, let's see here. And they Shiites. It's kind of similar to very similar to Protestants and Catholics. They're Shia. They follow more or less Ali. Okay, the companions of the prophet, they follow Ali. They beat themselves. They do little rituals where they go around in a circle and they beat themselves. They do a little different thing. They do some different stuff, that the Sunnis, these guys don't really agree with. They have different philosophies. Okay, different ways of doing things. These guys are also extremely rich, and they have made a bed a long time ago with these guys here. They made a bed back when oil was first, pretty much, started to get discovered and started to get really, really big in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. These guys got in bed with these guys. So I'm trying to help you understand what actually is going on, because you guys don't really know what's going on with the global elites. You don't really understand. You have no idea. A lot of you are, just kind of like minion that, just mindless minion that are only concerned with women and dating and, stuff like that. But this is global power. These guys don't concern themselves about that. They don't care about none of that. They're above that. Any woman that they want, they'll just buy them, or they'll go to a secret island and with no laws and no oversight, and basically get immunity if it gets discovered. Some even say this is the reason why this war is going on. It's a hard argument against it. I couldn't argue against it. I have the same thoughts as far as well, why this war is actually going on. All of a sudden, people are really looking at Epstein. Next thing you know, a war. People are not talking about Epstein anymore. Okay, but here's a problem. These guys are a problem. They're not prepared for. They thought, people were whispering in Trump's ear. They thought that this was going to be another Iraq invasion, another Iraq situation. They thought these guys were going to be as easy as taking out these guys. These guys are just punks on the street compared to these guys. They are entrenched, embedded, and have been preparing for a half a century for these guys to inevitably attack them. And they were ready for them. They were well prepared versus somebody starting a war off, some people whispering in their ear, having a quick meeting. And then now you have a situation where, it's really, really costly. This war is really costly. It's embarrassing to to Trump and others. Also, when you consider the Western billionaires in the Epstein class, Israel is included in that. Israel is not part of. They're in bed with these guys, but they're not a part of them. They're Europeans. The Israelis are Europeans. They're part of this class, the Western billionaire Epstein class. That is who they're a part of. They're not, just because they're in the Middle East doesn't mean anything. They're still part of the Western global elites. They're not a part of the Gulf cartel, the Middle Eastern oil cartel. They look the other way with Israel, from Israel, because they're embedded with the West. They are a proxy state of the West. Israel is a proxy state of the West. It's like a fort or some type of you know entrenched turf that the Western billionaires set up, basically almost 100 years ago. They set that up. They plan to send the Israelis, basically to send the European Jews somewhere so they can have global power in the future. And the plan worked excellently. It was chef's kiss. It worked out excellently. Like a lot of these people have 100,000-year-old plans that they run, 1,000-year, 100-year plans that they initiate. The people that started the plan, they, even if they die, their children continue on that plan. Or those that are involved in the circle, their job is to continue those 100-year, 200-year, 1,000-year plans. While you trying to plan for Friday, Saturday night for the weekend, it's global elites that have been planning for hundreds, thousands of years of planning. They have everything documented, laid out in secret archives and books and ledgers on what they want to do on the planet, what type of world that they want to have. That plan is called the New World Order. So now that we have that broken down as far as with the Middle East cartel, you have the Kremlin oligarchs. Okay, the Kremlin oligarchs. Okay, this is Putin and company. Okay, Putin and company, they are still aligned with. Don't think for a second that they're not aligned with them, or they don't talk to each other. They definitely talk to each other, but they are different. They are separate from these guys. They have their own sect or crew, right? The Kremlin oligarchs. Putin, his Russian oligarchs that is under his circle. They are at war as well with these guys. They're at war with them. Ukraine is basically a dividing line between the Western billionaire class and the Kremlin oligarchs. It's a war. It's been going on for over 10 years, but really longer than that. But that is a war. Western elites supplying the Ukrainians with weapons to kill the Russians, to keep the Russians at bay. They're doing a pretty good job in the last, I would say, 90 days. They have turned some tides, okay? But these guys are very, very strategic, and they play the long game. They also support these guys, okay? The Russian oligarchs, Putin and company, they support the IRGC. A lot of the weapons that the Iranians have is from the Kremlin. It's directly from the Kremlin. Okay, so follow along with me. Don't get lost. Now, finally, you have these guys, and these guys don't nobody really hardly ever talk about. China, the CCP Red Elite. Okay. China aligns with Kremlin, their cousins, their next door neighbor. They align with Kremlin, and they basically help also the IRGC, Iranians. They supply them weapons, also intel. They give that to the Iranians. So this is what's going on. Okay. This is, what's happening. Any questions? So let's watch a video, kind of explain this a little bit. I guess this is going to be short. I mean, it's not that many global elites, so it makes more sense, that it's really not that much to really. It is a lot to explain, but not really. It's not really like it. It really ain't that much to explain, to be honest, because
the prominent
it's not that many global elites. This is a small group, very, very small group. Let's see.
voices of opposition that are featured are voices like that who are, unabashedly pro-Israel and want to basically do Israel's bidding and get the U.S. to bomb Iran. And then meanwhile, you have other, prominent U.S. voices leading the charge for regime change, who openly talk about making ordinary Iranians suffer. For example, Nancy Pelosi joining the chorus, put forward of people like Scott Bessent, Trump's Treasury Secretary, who's been openly bragging about his role through the Treasury Department in imposing sanctions and crashing Iran's economy. And here's Nancy Pelosi endorsing that strategy.
Use economic forces. Yeah. Use economic forces. There are ways that could cripple their economy, and some of that has been in the works.
It does feel very tenuous, though, of the regime there. More than it has in a long time.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But again, it's not about a threat from war. Hopefully, it's more about just weaken their economy, and that weakens the support they do have, because they do have support in the rural areas and the more conservative imams and all the.
This woman here, she is one of the most successful stock traders in U.S. Senate history. If you follow what she trades, you'll be extremely rich. Extremely rich.
The rest of that, but we have to make them feel the pain as well.
Is there a
inflict pain? That's all these maniacal Democratic leaders talk about, who've never served in the military.
And notice, she's a Democrat. They're not against this. When people say it's two tails of the same bird, that's what they mean. They're involved in this whole conflict. That's why they're not saying much about it. They're involved with it. They're part of the plan. This is what they're involved with. It's not about Democrat, Republican. It's team Western billionaire Epstein class. That is what this is about. This is what their team. This is who who Nancy Pelosi speaks for. This is who she represents. These are her paymasters, the Western billionaire Epstein class.
Inflict pain on ordinary people because they support their government. So the way to get them to not support their government is to make them feel pain. It's, I mean, again, who gives Nancy Pelosi the power, or anybody in a foreign government that's not Iran, to impose pain on ordinary Iranians? But that's what you can say when you're a hegemon, and when your hegemony is accepted across the spectrums, whether it's Scott Bessent, Trump's Treasury Secretary, or Nancy Pelosi, who's supposedly an opponent of Trump, who loves to talk about how she stood up to Trump and was leading his opposition. They all support the same policy of hurting ordinary people to advance regime change. And who wants to get on board with that agenda of serving Israel and hurting ordinary Iranians? But that's the consensus amongst the regime change crowd.
That's the consensus of the Democratic Party leadership. That's the alternative to Trump and what will be J.D. Vance. And what will Trump do next? He sent a second aircraft carrier battle group. There are tens of submarines in the waters, Coast Guard ships, destroyer class ships. It's 1/3 of the U.S. military's naval assets are moving into position to encircle Iran. Why? Was there some threat from Iran to the United States, to American national security? Were we even sold on some psyop about Iranian WMD or the smoking gun becoming a mushroom cloud unless we acted? Was there some national discussion? Was there a debate in Congress about going to war with Iran? No, it just suddenly came out of nowhere because Trump has decided that he must answer to his constituency among the Zionist Likudnik lobby that helped bring him to power, and specifically the Adelsons. Just as he has to answer to the South Florida Miami Mafia Gusano Industrial Complex that controls a few swing districts he needs to maintain his coalition, which requires him to starve Cuba to death, which we'll get to in a minute. And then for the rest of the MAGA base, he'll send out ICE to shoot a blue-haired lesbian protester in the face, and that's what they get. And then everyone else gets inflation and high interest rates and unaffordable groceries, and Howard Lutnick investing $600 million in Tether while David Sachs gears crypto policy so that Howard Lutnick can make record profits, and Eric Trump invests in an Israeli drone company that gets massive Pentagon contracts along with Tesla from this, gets State Department contracts to provide armored cars. And it's just the most corruption, so much corruption, we can't even keep track of it. But we have to go to war with Iran. We just have to, but no one even knows why. And it's just very simple. Donald Trump is controlled by Israel on this issue. It's Israel that wants to do this. The American people don't want to do it. And I don't even think Donald Trump wants to do it.
On the brink of war with a country that once called it. Why is the United States on the brink of war with a country that once called it a trusted friend? To answer that, we have to go back to 1953, to a secret operation with a simple name and massive consequences, Operation Ajax. This is the story of how the CIA and MI6 overthrew a popular democratic government in 4 days for oil and power, and how that one decision still shapes every US-Iran crisis you see on the news. For much of the 1800s and early 1900s, Iran was caught between two empires. Britain wanted its resources, Russia wanted its territory. Foreign deals carved the country into spheres of influence, and ordinary Iranians paid the price. Back then, if you asked an ordinary Iranian which foreign powers were exploiting their country, they'd say Britain and Russia. America? America looked like the exception, the powerful outsider that wasn't trying to colonize them. American missionaries arrived as teachers and engineers, not soldiers. The United States hadn't joined the imperial carve-up, and that made all the difference. For a brief window in history, Iranians genuinely trusted America. That trust began to unravel because of one thing: oil. In the early 1900s, a British concession evolved into the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, later known as BP. Britain's grip on Iranian oil was total. Iran's oil fueled foreign warships and foreign factories, while millions of Iranians lived in poverty, watching their national wealth leave the country by tanker. The arrangement wasn't just unfair, it was humiliating. In 1951, a fiery elderly lawyer named Mohammad Mossadegh became prime minister and did the unthinkable. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. Mossadegh wasn't trying to start a global revolution. He was a nationalist who believed Iran's oil should serve the Iranian people. For that, he became public enemy number one in London, and soon in Washington. Britain hit back with embargoes and legal warfare, choking Iran's economy. But Mossadegh wouldn't back down, and so London turned to its most powerful ally for help. In 1953, British intelligence and the CIA agreed on a covert plan to remove Mossadegh and hand full power to the Shah, Iran's young monarch. The operation was codenamed Ajax, and it would become Washington's first major Cold War regime change project. The playbook was ruthless. American and British operatives planted fake stories in Iranian newspapers, bribed politicians and military officers, and paid street gangs to stage violent riots that they could blame on Mossadegh's government. The first attempt actually failed. The Shah panicked and fled the country, but the CIA pressed on, and on August 19, 1953, a second wave of paid mobs and royalist soldiers stormed the streets of Tehran. By nightfall, Mossadegh's government had fallen. He was arrested in his pajamas and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. The Shah flew home to a hero's welcome, stage managed by the very intelligence agencies that had put him there. In just 4 days, a democratically elected government was replaced by a friendly autocrat, and the full story stayed buried in classified files for decades.
So they tried to do the same play. These guys, they tried to do the same play like a couple months ago. They tried to have some insurrection. Iran basically quelled it within less than 24 hours. They found the Starlinks. They arrested several Mossad agents, Israel secret agents, intelligence agents, and they basically quelled the plot. So that was plan A. They were trying to do the same thing that they did in the 1950s. Two months ago, basically. It failed. The operation failed miserably. They still have those Mossad agents in prison right now as we speak. So they had to go to plan B. And plan B is what you're seeing now being played out.
For the next 25 years, the Shah ruled as Washington's most reliable Middle Eastern ally.
Not in this video, as far as the operations that are going on with the bombing and even the possible ground invasion that might possibly go on.
He bought American weapons, modernized the economy, and projected a pro-Western image to the world. But inside Iran, millions saw him as a foreign puppet, installed by a coup, sustained by secret police. In 1979, that anger exploded. A revolution swept the Shah from power and created an Islamic republic that defined itself against the United States. Students stormed the American embassy and took 52 hostages for 444 days. Formal ties between the two countries were shattered, and they have never recovered. So when you see missile strikes, sanctions, or talk of attacking Iran today, you're looking at the latest chapter in a story that started not with religion, but with a secret decision to protect oil and empire in 1953. Here's what I want to know from you. If the US and Iran were once genuine friends, and that friendship was broken in a backroom coup, what would it actually take to rebuild trust today? Is this really about nuclear programs, or is it unfinished business from Operation Ajax? Tell me in the comments. If you found this breakdown useful, hit subscribe right now.
So there you have it. So these are the billionaire classes and the part of the global elites. Okay, so you know, I don't really have anything else to say. I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory. I just wanted to kind of educate you on who the global elites are. Okay, some of them you already know, but you now have names to go by. Okay, you have basically. I'll close with this. You have the Western global elites with the Epstein class going against these guys, and also these guys. So that's why this is messy. Okay, you don't have a situation where you're fighting some poor, drug cartels from another country. You're fighting other global elites that might even be more stronger financially than the American elites, like the CCP. China is a world superpower. They overtook the West. Actually, they have more capital. China has more billionaires than the US. Actually, no, they don't. But they have more millionaires than the United States. They don't have more billionaires, but they have more millionaires than people in the United States, because they have more people. So you have quite a few individuals that they have to fight. It's too many snakes in the snake pit. You're not gonna be able to fight all of these people. That's why Trump is trying to back down. You can't fight the CCP, the Kremlin, and the IRGC. It's too much. And some of the countries are not joining in, are not supporting, like Italy. Other countries are not supporting the United States. They're backing off. They're not even letting them use their, basically airports to fly planes. These guys they have under wraps. They pretty much have these people under wraps. Okay, they're not worried about them. They not really concerned. But this plan that they had for the Iran global Revolutionary Guard, it didn't work, because it's not like they just have to deal with one snake pit. They have a war on all fronts. They're dealing with the Kremlin, and they're dealing with the CCP. Basically too many snakes to deal with. So there you have it. Hope this helps you understand more about the global elites, so you'll be less confused. The less confused you are, the more productive you can be. Okay, so I hope this helps you with that understanding.